Bad Life Podcast! You're listening to the Bad Life Podcast, your number one guide on how to run a profitable band. Here are your hosts, Pete Stannard and Adam West, the Wizard of Rock! Hello, and welcome to the Band Life Podcast. I am Pete Stannard, your host, and I'm here with the Wizard of Rock himself, Mr. Adam West. How are you on this very festive edition of the Band Life Podcast, episode 16, sir?
Absolutely amazing.
Much merriment is happening in Mr. West's world, as you can tell by our wonderful hats. Eh? We have gone. No expense has been taken for our hats. They are tacky and disgusting, as they should be. I love yours is more elfish than mine. I've gone more Santa.
Well, I was looking for one like that.
You've gone more elfish.
Yeah, well, I was looking for one like that, and I was like, oh, the only thing I've actually got that I know I can put my hand on is this thing.
If you're enjoying this podcast and you're a generous soul, which I'm sure you are, why not buy Adam and myself a cup of coffee? You can do that at buymeacoffee.com/the Band Life Podcast.
Episode 16, right?
Yeah,
it's our
boy.
Christmas special. Right? This hopefully this will be out Christmas Eve, as it's a Tuesday, and our podcast tends to go out on a Tuesday. So you can sit down and listen to it while you're eating your Christmas dinner on Christmas Day, and you can ignore your family.
When the arguments start, this is the time to go, I know.
The headphones go on.
I'll listen to Pete and Westo talking crap. So what's on the agenda there, my friend?
The agenda. Okay. Right. I have some predictions for 2025.
Yeah.
And, I think these are more just my predictions, and you're going to comment on them.
Good.
Should we do that? Shall I take full responsibility for these for these predictions?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Go for it.
Right, the first thing, let's start with social media. Social media for 2025. I think short form is going to be, I know it's pretty prominent now, but I think it's going to be even more prominent going into next year. Mainly because Spotify have introduced their clips. They're going to be pushing that next year. They've upped it to 30 seconds. And it's because they're trying to compete with TikTok, with ByteDance in particular.
And Instagram.
Instagram.
It's the way to go, mate. Reels and shorts. People are just like, ding, 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 ding. Oh.
I personally would prioritize that against making an official music video, that sort of thing. Those MTV type videos, for now, I mean, unless you have like a large subscription base on YouTube. If you have a big subscription base on YouTube, then do that. Go and make long form videos. But long form videos are really difficult to kind of get off the ground. Start at short form, get really good at short form, and then once you've built up a subscriber, a subscription base, then start to do longer form stuff. 30 seconds, top whack. If you do go over that, make sure they're edited, like 5-second edits. Everything's just like chop, move around, that sort of thing. Are you listening,
boys and girls? This is really important.
It is, and it does actually, because the thing is to sit and watch. I don't think people necessarily have the attention span to sit and watch someone that they don't really know or care about drone on for more than 30 seconds without some kind of movement, just to keep that interest going on.
So going.
And I think, like I say, it's got to come down to what you're talking about. So I put out a plan for 2025 I had a strategy session with a band, and we worked out a plan. And I did the framework of that as a post, and that was about a 4-minute video. So that's long. It's a long video, but that's one of my best performing videos, and that's because it moved around a lot between me talking and me showing the actual plan written out, and. People, once you start watching that, you want to go from top to bottom on it because it's a plan. You're not going to go, oh, okay, I'm all right now for the plan up until June and then not bother from June till December, So once you're kind of 6 months in on that plan, you want to find out what's going to happen in the other 6 months. So 2 minutes in, you're going to watch the other 2 minutes. And it's having that kind of thought process of, okay, how can I keep people interested? And if you've got something that has to go from A to B or A to Z or something like that, then people will sit and watch it. So I'm not entirely kind of convinced that people's attention span is becoming shorter and shorter. I just think people's tolerance for crap is becoming a lot less. Essentially, I think people have the option of going somewhere else. They're going to take it. If you're not being entertained by something, why would you stick around?
Be interesting to know what people actually are looking for and what entertains them, what makes them stay on a video. Besides,
you can test that. You can test that by just producing lots of different types of videos and actually like looking at the analytics and seeing what has captured people and what hasn't, and just regurgitate those types of videos. And I'll bet you it's something that is a bit more fast paced. It's something that possibly has a beginning and a middle and an end. That once you kind of get people in on the beginning, keep people in the middle, and get people to the end.
Well, well, that's why albums do well. That's kind of how I mapped my album out, really. It had a beginning, a middle, and an end story. And in fact, we had one review where I think somebody, my mate reviewed the album, and he kind of said that. He said it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. He said it's storytelling, and he said, yeah, it's good. So I think it's like podcasts as well. You kind of do the same thing. It's like when I was doing the Unity of Souls one with another chap. We had the introduction, and then we'd have certain things similar to what we're doing, and then we'd be like, as a listener, you go on and go, oh, I can't wait for them to start talking about, I don't know, the comments section or like a shout out or a mention or something like that. And then you've got something to look forward to in the show, and then it's like, right, and I had some crazy ideas that me and this other chap were working on, something like slap somebody or something, and we'd have a sound effect. It was like anybody out there having a really bad day and would really like to slap somebody, and then we'd have that whoosh slap sound, and
the sound effect,
and then we just go, right, well, here's a couple of people we'd like to slap, and we'd mention them and have a laugh, and then we move on, just stuff like that. I think at least then people are like, who are they going to slap today? I mean, it never really started and took off. It was just an idea,
Yeah. Oh, so you didn't get a chance to test it in any way to see if it's a segment that would last.
Well, maybe we should do it. Who could we? What artist or musician would we like to slap today, or what album would we like to slap? Man, I could have so much fun with that one.
Well, so far I think it's that Brat album, isn't it? Which is what album of the year?
Let's start it, shall we? Right? I haven't listened. I haven't listened to it.
Charlie CCX or whatever her name is. She's according to HMV, it's album of the year, and it's already iconic. According to the review, quite how it could be. When was it actually released? Does it say when it was released?
No, we don't.
Right. So I don't know how an album that's less than a year old can be considered iconic.
Oh, Pete, you're so old school, man.
I know.
My God, dude, really?
In 1992, everyone was like, the iconic Black Album and the iconic Nevermind album.
Yeah.
That didn't happen till at least a few years after people go, actually, this album, it's lasted You know, it standed the test of time. That's what makes an album iconic, is that it can stand the test of time.
Well, I was going to ask,
What's the criteria for an iconic album?
Yeah, effectively.
Let us know in the comments, because that's
Please.
what I would say. It has to stand the test. It has to sound fresh, like 10 years on. Otherwise, it's just another album, isn't it? Am I right? Or am I foolish in thinking this?
Is Pete foolish? Decent comments, please. Thank you. Is
Westo
insane?
Yes.
Is Westo insane and bitter? Comment in the comments.
Or are
Yes
we
or
just
no?
a bunch of tossers on a podcast? As our lovely, lovely troll once said.
Do you know what? Yeah, there's no. Yeah, no.
You two are a bunch of tossers. Thanks, mate.
Yeah,
Love you too.
we need some more beautiful feedback,
Beautiful
like
comments like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we love
like
that.
especially with the hats. Now, listen, we're going to do a poll. Whose hat looks the best, mine or Pete's?
Whose hat looks the best? If you're listening to this,
Yeah, sorry, yeah,
we
Pete, if you're
apologise.
listening.
Oh, maybe we could give a description. So mine is more like a Santa hat that
With-
has, you can hear,
Glittery as well. It's red with
it
glittery
has
things on it.
sequins on it.
Sequins, wow.
It has a bell on the end, like within the hat, and a bauble. And I have little Santa Clauses kind of on the brim or the waistband. The headband.
The headband. You look like a ridiculous 80s Santa's fitness instructor.
Exactly. Whereas Westo's hat he's got more for the elf look. But let's be honest, it's seen better days, I think. Has a cat been sleeping in that for the last?
Yes, Luna's been
months.
led on it, and that's probably why I'm itching so much. It's a very lush evergreen, dark evergreen colour with a nice bend on it, and it's got red surround with bells on the end, and the red's obviously very, very bright, and it looks
Yes.
absolutely ridiculous on me, but I like it.
It does. All you need is this Shallow Souls logo on it, and you could wear it every episode, mate.
Oh, mate. I need. Hey, I got a sticker lying around you. I could stick that on there somewhere, can't I?
Is the QR code being scratched off it though?
Yeah, that'll be.
Yeah.
I did it.
So it's a public appeal. If you are in the Wales area, what area of Wales are you? Like Newport?
Yeah, Newport area. Yeah.
If you are the person that scratched off the QR code on the Shallow Souls stickers, make yourself known, because Adam, well, he wants compensation.
Adam wants to
Adam
slap a pedestrian.
slap some very angry Welsh person.
Yes, we're going to have a thing on this show where we're going to slap people we're not particularly
Slap.
keen on.
Slap a star.
Slap a star.
Slap a star.
Slap a star or slap a pedestrian.
Just slap people.
It's slap time.
We're not going to start calling people slappers. Let's put it like that.
No,
We're not that. We're not that horrible. We're not that mean.
No.
But anyway, moving on. Moving on from that, I digress. Right, my prediction for live music.
Go on.
I haven't got good news for you, Adam. I know this.
This is a Christmas show. We're supposed to have
I
good news.
know.
man.
Supposed to have, I wish I had more good news for you on the live scene, but I think artists are going to have to work harder than ever
What?
to get live shows.
Dude, we've just done loads of podcasts on how hard it actually is.
Yeah,
Well,
and it's-
what harder
I think-
again?
Well, because audiences have dropped.
come on then.
Apparently, post-pandemic was because no one could go out throughout the pandemic. There was a big bump for live music once everything opened up again. Apparently, that now has tailed off, and the appetite for live shows has completely slumped. Touring costs are through the roof, obviously, because just the cost of petrol and diesel and all that sort of stuff alone. Yeah, it doesn't look good, to be honest, unless you are a massively established band. Venues are dropping like flies. So the grassroots element of live music is in dire need of something to happen. Quite what that is, I don't know.
Just to interrupt them, only quickly, did you know that based on what you're just saying then, that the pub or the venue in Cardiff called the Moon recently shut its doors as well?
Oh no!
Yeah, they handed the keys back over to the landlord.
What sort of cap was that? Was that a big cap or?
I don't know what capacity there was for that. Safety wise, I'd say definitely 50 plus.
So what, it's 60. Normally they start around 60 and then up to 100.
Yeah, it wasn't a big venue, but yeah, it was. My mate sent me the link, oddly enough, and he said, "Oh, they handed the keys back over to the landlord and shut their doors." So I was like, "Well, that's another venue we never got to play in."
Yeah,
but yeah,
it's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was that one of the venues that was like you need to have 12K followers?
No, I don't believe so.
No?
But they were supposed. Well, this is what ticked me off a bit because I'm like, hang on a minute, how come the Music Venue Trust didn't step in for that one? It's like one of the venues that's bumping every Friday, Saturday. Well, I assume it was anyway, but they obviously. I don't know. I don't think they released.
I suppose the trouble is that the issue that venues have is that you've only really got 2, maybe 3 nights that you're going to make any significant amount of money. But you've got a building, that you've got to maintain, pay rents on, and everything else that has to be paid for, 24/7. So unless you can find a way of getting people in that kind of Monday to Thursday area, I think you're going to really struggle because all you need is a few bad weeks or a couple of bad months or something like that, and you just on a downward spiral. From a venue perspective, you're in a downward spiral because, even if you don't open up, it's still costing you money in a way because you've still got to pay, your overheads. If I don't open the studio up tomorrow, I'm still paying rent. I'm still having to pay electricity, like the standing charges and all the rest of it on electricity and all the rest of it.
It's a case of having to, isn't it?
Yeah. I've got to make the money somewhere at the end of the day. And no, the studio's not open. I don't have a session in here every day, but the days that I don't have sessions, I'm still spending money. And it's the same with venues. So I kind of see the struggles if audiences don't have an appetite, especially the youth audiences, which, young people aren't going out like they used to. When we were young, you go out, you get absolutely trolleyed, and sleep. I've slept in skips after gigs because
you're hardcore, mate. You.
And I don't think that young people are going out like that anymore. A lot of young people don't drink at all. They're teetotal. I mean, whenever I have sort of younger people in the studio, I say, "Do you want a cup of tea?" No, we don't drink tea or coffee.
Oh, it's monster drinks, isn't it? That's all the fucking.
Yeah, they tend to drink energy drinks, but they don't drink tea or coffee because it affects their teeth. They don't want to brown their teeth. Because I asked them, like, why do no kids drink tea or coffee anymore? It's like because it stains your teeth.
Well, it does.
It does, yeah. And that's sort of from that point of view, I suppose so. But you've got to be drinking tea and coffee for decades for it to really make a big difference. But I think, young people are a lot more health conscious than we ever were. I dread to think what my liver looks like. To be very honest. Yeah.
Well, your liver regenerates, so it's probably all right, Pete.
No, I've not stopped drinking. This is the problem.
What an advocate for youth today.
Yeah, exactly. Driving in this morning at 7:00, I was a bottle of vodka, mate. Not really. I don't.
Not while driving, okay?
Not while driving. Actually, technically, you can drink and drive, as long as you're not over the prescribed limit.
I don't think this is a road you should go down.
Honestly, anyone out there, do not do that. Okay, just that's the thing.
Now the comments will start.
But technically, you can because you have a prescribed limit, so you can have a beer, And people actually have been pulled over. They're drinking beer in their car. They've been pulled over. They've had the breathalyzer and they're under the limit. So they just send them on their way. Because they can't prosecute them. Because they've not broken the law. It's nuts. I think that's absolutely nuts. But, I don't make the law. I'd have a zero tolerance on alcohol and driving myself. I never do it. If I'm driving, I do not.
No mobile phones, no distractions,
no
no drinking, okay? Period.
Yeah.
You're driving a killing machine. Stay focused on your job role. Stop multitasking. Wait until you get out of the car and take the call. People can wait.
I would even go as far as limiting all cars to 70 miles an hour. Why do cars need to go faster than 70? That's the
Because
prescribed law.
people need to go places.
They go places faster than the actual fastest speed limit that you can do in this country. And I know what people counter argument is that, if you want to drive abroad, stuff like that. So, well, actually, generally in Europe, the top limit is 100 kilometers, which is like 65 miles an hour, something like that.
What? I wanted to read you something quickly before we before we upset the viewers. The viewer, which isn't too
the viewer and the listeners. We actually had quite a few listeners for your album episode.
Oh, did we? Oh, well,
that did really well. Yeah.
Cool. Well, nobody slagged me off yet, but
not yet.
No, okay.
Not yet. I can do that if you want.
Well, So, the moon and why they're shutting the doors. Okay, so very briefly, despite our best efforts to keep going during the past few years, the burden of a cost of living crisis and the mounting costs of running a business where survival always runs on a knife edge have proven too difficult for us to continue. Every time we think we've overcome a hurdle, another 5 appear, and there are so many factors involved, not one particular reason, but dozens. We fought so hard and are so proud that we've kept the moon alive for this long, especially during the most difficult times that no one could have predicted back when we reopened the space in 2017. And then it's just the thank yous, and that's it. So that's kind of the reason why they shut their doors, cost of living, apparently.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's why a lot of grassroots venues have gone at the moment.
Yeah, so well done to all those that voted Tories, okay, that are in a band. It's down to you guys that the venues are shut down.
Yes. I suppose
Tory voter!
No, far from it. I've never voted Tory ever. I'm not sure. I think it's something that even like in the early part of my career, people have been like, small venues are on the way out, sort of thing. It's always been something sort of bubbling, right, for decades. So I'm not sure we could completely land it on one government or another.
No. Good. Right.
But I think the way that the Tories handled most things was completely ridiculously stupid.
Rishi
and kind of helped a certain demographic. But hopefully, I would hope that at some point, once if this government can get the finances sorted out in this country, there will be more for arts. I would prioritize arts way more than governments do. But it always seems to be kind of bottom of the pile when it comes to sorting stuff out. But I don't think they quite realize how important this stuff is.
I think they do, and they just don't care, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, for the health of the nation, because we are social animals, and the fact that especially young people are not going out and socializing like they used to is just mind blowing to me, because I think we need that human interaction, and if all your human interaction is online, I've got a million friends on Facebook, so you've got no friends,
and none of them come to the gigs.
Exactly.
I'm busy.
Too busy to go out.
Too busy to see you and your silly little band with the QR codes.
Yeah, how dare you have a QR code? But I also think that large ticketing companies should make more of an effort. I think, and even large bands should make more of an effort. I think there should be a percentage that goes to some kind of grassroots fund from big ticket sales. Especially now they've done this dynamic pricing rubbish that's just really kind of pissed me off for a start. Like this whole the Oasis thing was just ridiculous. You know, people spending like 400 quid on a ticket. To be honest, even if I was in a queue for hours and hours and hours and it came up 400 quid a ticket, I'd be like, no, sorry.
Well, that's the other thing.
It.
Well,
Plus,
no,
it's going to be a really crap show because there's no way that they're going to get on. If you are late in that tour, they're going to be obliged to play that gig. And you think they're going to be happy at that point? Nope. So you spent 400 quid to see Liam and Noel Gallagher be pissed off at each other on stage. Well done. That's kind of my 2 penneth on it. Anyway, but I think Ticketmaster, Live Nation, they need to sort their house out and they need to take some money and put that into grassroots, because at some point there is not going to be a live acts for them to, because the grassroots stuff is where bands come up. That's where music artists come up. And if they don't, you don't have a business anymore because no one's going to see bands anymore. And that's going to affect, you know, all you can see is like massive legacy bands and no one else.
Well, this is what's kind of happening, and they're not surviving because they're like, no one can pay us for what we're asking. I'm like, yeah, that's right, because you're not worth it. You're just like the rest of us, like struggling. So like, even though you might get paid half a grand or less to do a show, it's like, well, you can't keep up with your current running costs anyway. So like, you're in a no better situation than us because most of us can't get the venues, and when we can, it's the petrol cost to get there, and then most venues don't want to pay the bands.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you could get everybody to boycott it, that's all you need. It's a bit like a walkout on a job or peaceful protest. You know, the only reason people do it is to highlight an issue that's escalated to the point where no one's listening. And yet everybody gets demonized then for, well, look, you're protesting, you're holding up this and you're doing this. It's like, whoa, hang on a minute. Most of the time, the reason why people protest is a last resort, right? So you try and quash all those problems before you do protest. So if they are protesting, there's something seriously wrong with what they're protesting about. So why not go investigate that instead of slagging off the people in the street protesting? It's like, we're hammered down 24 hours a day, like, you know. I mean, if you look at the Christmas period in most places, they want everybody to work through like all the festive season, and then when you do have a bit of time with your family, you're half dead anyway.
Right. My next prediction is a little bit of bad news as well for you, Adam, and I know it's your favorite. AI is going to be more and more prominent. And when I was researching this, quite a lot of people were saying that we could possibly even have the first number one that's AI generated.
I think I commented on a post you put up about that, and I'm like, it'll die a quick death. You know, this AI thing, it's great, it's new, it's fresh, it's amazing, but I'm like, I'm already seeing some bands, I mean, whether they're using it to augment their platform or whatever, I'm like, well, whatever. I mean, to me, it's just, we did the show on the AI Sumo and all that, and it was really, really interesting and impressive. But I'm like, do you know what? I'm like, I don't care. It just doesn't take away being in a room together and working on stuff. And I think a lot of people will be like, whatever. Whatever. And even if they're going to try and compete with it, I'm just like, it'll get saturated really quick and it'll just die an ugly death very quickly.
But
I don't think people should be too bothered.
The issue, I think the reason people should be bothered is because of the level of saturation, especially on somewhere like Spotify, which seems to be like the focal point for a lot of artists.
Well, that's why we greatly
for where they're
encourage not to use
consuming.
Spotify.
Yeah, we do. Because I think it's a dying place, but it's still like the number one place for people to consume music.
Well, it's like
And
everything.
that's the appeal. For
Well,
it.
you know, it's like if you've
Right
got a
now.
lot of people grouped together that go to the same place, and you want to, if you want to push something you're doing, you're like, well, where's everybody congregate? Oh, I know, there. Facebook will go on there maybe, or we'll go on Spotify. So it's great. I mean, I use it because there's a lot of people upload a lot of cool podcast content that you can't get anywhere else. So it's
Yeah.
like, well, okay, well, I'll go there for it. I don't think I want to put my music on there. I mean, I know the guys have asked, are we going to be putting it up there? I'm like, I don't know. I said, I might do it next year. I said, but to be honest, I said, we've had more joy using Bandcamp, and I said, you can't sell your stuff on Spotify.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm like, no, I might even go to SoundCloud, but with SoundCloud, you got to pay to upload more and stuff. But it's like, well, whatever. Like, I mean, you know, it's just.
I mean, and this is what I've always said is treat SoundCloud more like it's a radio station. So just put your singles out. So if you've got, let's say you've got a 12-song album and you've got 5 songs, 3 to 5 songs on there that you would consider to be sort of singles, quote unquote. I would just release those on Spotify, so you at least have a presence. And I hate to use the word commercial, but try to be commercial with it, because it's what it is. It's a commercial station as such. Putting your best foot forward, as in what would be considered your singles. Just put those on Spotify. And then all of your album stuff from a streaming perspective, I would put them all on SoundCloud. And
Interesting.
the rest, probably similarly, I would put those on Bandcamp and stuff like that. And obviously all your physical stuff, I would put on Bandcamp. So that would be my 3 main, my try approach, I suppose you could call it, is purely singles like it's a radio station. So if you don't think that this song would be played on a radio, don't put it on Spotify. Put it on SoundCloud. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad song. Don't get me wrong. It means that it wouldn't be considered commercial enough to be played on the radio. But the songs that you feel are commercial enough to be played on the radio, I would put those on Spotify. But I would also put all of your stuff on SoundCloud and Bandcamp. And this is quite metal and rock perspective as well. I think if you're a pop artist, because well, hopefully there's more than one genre of people listening to this. If you're a pop artist, it'd be a different approach. Spotify is your world if you're a pop artist, because it's like I say, a radio station for a pop artist, that is your world as well. Radio 1 should be a target for you as a pop artist or an R&B artist, or sort of more poppy kind of hip hop artist, that sort of thing. But if you're metal and rock, that's how I would do it. I would do singles, commercialized singles on Spotify, everything else. Not to say that the stuff you put on Spotify doesn't go on SoundCloud and Bandcamp as well, but I would just pick those songs out, and they're the ones I would release.
Commercial only for Spotify, basically, then, yeah?
Yeah, commercialized stuff for Spotify. It's a commercialized thing. It's a commercialized commodity. No one's paying for music on Spotify. It's nuts.
No, that's right.
So it's commercialized because if you didn't pay a subscription, you'd be listening to commercials. So it's a commercialized entity.
And we've done lots of shorts on that one, people, so go listen to them.
In fact, we have an entire series dedicated to how much Spotify is a pain in the bum. Now, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly of Spotify. And it's the series is called All Things Spotify. And there's actually, if you're listening to this on YouTube, there is a playlist specific to that series. So we're actually quite organised, Adam. Believe it or not.
Yes, I know. I'm thoroughly excited about the Spotify thing. When we were talking about condensing sort of short shows and stuff like that, that sort of stuff is, I think, something people can really sort of gravitate towards, because it's like, sure, it's now, it's important to a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people really understand Spotify, what it's about, and all the other little bits and pieces to go with it. So short, compressed videos and tips and stuff. And there's a lot to cover with the Spotify thing too. I think you could do it quite a bit with Bandcamp as well. With stuff like that, there's, you know, some of the questions people have that you can never really find the answers for on the World Wide Web. And so that's where we come in. We'll tell you all about it. Well, Pete will, because he's a clever guy.
Yeah, but also going back to sort of the AI stuff, because there is talks, and I think this is something that is going to happen at some point. Whether it happens next year or not, I don't know. But I think copyright law is going to have to be changed, because I think Suno and another, I can't remember the name of the other AI platform, they're currently being sued by the majors because they're using their artists to train their AIs. And I think at some point copyright law will change, and you will have to disclose whether what you're producing is AI generated.
Well, I think it's only fair, right?
Yeah, I think so. I would imagine, and I think at some point what you're going to have is like a category of, you know, if you go on Spotify, for example, you're going to have a category like AI category on there, and that's kind of how they will kind of solve that copyright thing. But it's got to get into law, and you know, for it to be a global thing as well takes time. So whether or not that's going to be something that happens this year or in the coming years, I don't know. But I think the majors are starting to see this as a threat, because the pro rata model is all about quantity. That's how they're generating lots of money, by putting out lots of music, and they can't compete with millions of people just generating music and putting it out at the end of the day. No company could even do that. So unless they start employing, you know, thousands of people to sit down every day and start generating music, they're going to really struggle from that perspective. So I think that copyright law is going to come into it at some point, and they're going to go, you need to disclose this stuff at the very least. And you're also going to need to stop using other artists to train your AI. And anything that has been trained previously has to come out of your algorithms, that sort of thing.
I don't think that's a bad shout, mind. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, like, remember we done that show, we talking about these drug cartels were using Spotify?
Yeah,
I mean, that still blows my mind. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, what?
It's crazy, isn't it?
Because it got into the whole Suno thing, right? And I'm sure there's people listening going, what? I'm like, here you go. There's your clickbait there, right? You want to find out about that one? Go listen to that show. That's mind blowing. I was just like, what?
Yeah, laundering money through Spotify. Yeah,
I'm like, yeah. I mean, like, this is what I mean. We're the same with the AI thing. People will go, see an opportunity. Here we go. We can use this. And I'm just like, so it's not about the music and artists. And this is why we're like, look, just put it aside, right? And just get back to grassroots stuff. Like, hey, we used to do music. It worked, right? And yet people are like, oh, we need something different. It's like, why? If you're that bored, go find something else to do. But this shit works, so use it, like, you know. And lo and behold, the vinyl thing is coming back. Record players and vinyl players. I'm just like, but
this is the other thing that gets me. Is that if you've got an argument of we want something different, then AI isn't the way to do it, because AI can only reproduce what's already been done before. It's not sentient in any way, so it's a ridiculous argument. It doesn't come from logic. Logically, people sitting down and writing songs is going to be different from anything AI can produce. if you're very good at writing songs, or if you're good at writing songs, then you're going to be different from everyone else, because that's should be your goal. Otherwise, you're just recreating what everyone else is doing, which is
You won't
what
beat this,
AI
boys
is.
and girls. What's up there?
Exactly.
Your
For now.
sentient intelligence.
For now, it's going to get very matrixy in the future.
You won't
We're
beat
gonna
old school, man.
Yeah, we're going to be batteries for the robots. One day.
That's a good title for a song, Pete. You want to nab
Batteries for
that, or shall I?
robots. Well,
Get
you're
your
nabbing
pencil
that
out
from the
quick.
Matrix. Isn't that the premise of the Matrix?
Yeah, but
All the humans in those pods, they're essentially batteries to run the... But anyway,
moving on.
moving on from the AI
We're trying to
thing,
keep
we
our
could
shows
talk-
very short.
Yeah,
See,
it's okay.
we could
This will
talk
be
for hours. We
edited.
could talk glass eyes to sleep, man.
Exactly. My next prediction, and this is something I've caught my eye, is the Musicians Union. They were in Brighton at the trade union convention, the TUC,
Yeah.
and they are pushing for a minimum royalty rate to be paid for artists and a session musicians fund, so that session musicians can get a royalty, because at the moment they're paid like a flat rate, and they don't actually receive a royalty. So at the moment, the MU are asking streaming companies to do this voluntarily. My comment on that post was, good luck. I don't think they're going to do that voluntarily. But if they won't, then they're going to look to the government to start putting in legislation, which I think is far more interesting and probably a lot more kind of the route that you're going to end up having to go down. So do you want to know what what Naomi, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name right, so please forgive me, Naomi, if you're listening to this. Naomi Pohl, Pohl. So to quote her, what we're calling for is a minimum modern digital royalty rate for featured artists. So if you're signed to a label, if you are signed decades ago, you might be on a very low royalty rate, like say 10% on music streaming. Which is okay. I don't know anyone that gets 10%, but okay. We think that's just not fair. So we would like a minimum digital royalty rate of more like 25 to 30%, which is the modern rate. So all
session
artists,
musicians to get paid then.
no, this is all featured artists. So this is you, my friend, you and
I'm not a featured artist, though. I mean, you've got to get to that spot to be a featured artist, and somebody's got to consider you to be. Again, it's all to do with like, so what ticks the boxes then? You got 12k followers? No, bugger off.
No, you would be considered to be the Shallow Souls. You would be the featured artist of your album, because
Yeah,
you
but
are
you
the
would
artist.
you would have to be featured by somebody, wouldn't you? It's a bit like this catalogue you've been slagging off for this beginning of the show.
No, I think it's a more broad term than that.
Yeah,
So
you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. I think a featured artist is just a featured artist. So you would be the featured artist, and you don't have a co-writer as such.
Right, okay.
So it can get a little bit confusing, because especially in pop, you have like an artist and then featuring someone else, if that makes sense.
Oh, right, yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it's more broad than that. Of you as an artist, you are a featured artist because you've produced that album. So they're calling for 25 to 30%, because back many years ago, it was more like 10%, and obviously over time that's been raised, but the old signings are still relevant today, if that makes sense. So they just want that to be raised. So right now, you should be getting 25 to 30%. Okay.
Well, I mean, like, if you consider jobs as well, where they're asking for pay rises, why wouldn't that apply to featured artists then, which is a good, I suppose it's a fair point to argue. I'd be like, yeah, okay, we've been on this amount for the past how many decades
Yeah.
and nothing's changed. Why aren't we getting considered? I mean, we're offering a service. People are paying to watch us. Why? Yeah, that's a fair one. I go with that, I think.
Yeah, it seems fair. I just think just because you signed a contract like 10 years ago the standard back then was 10%, and now a decade on, the standard has moved up 25 to 30%.
So
why shouldn't that follow that trend as such? It's like, if inflation comes up and if you work 9 to 5, inflation goes up, and you have a very kind boss that goes, okay, we're going to pay you a bit of extra money because everything is more expensive now. Then it's that kind of mindset, I think, behind it. This is something that a lot of artists they just don't have the representation beyond the musicians' union as such. You got to also remember that the source of this material is the musicians' union. So they're going to want their members to get as much as possible. Whether or not they're going to end up with 25 to 30%, I don't know. But anything more than 10% is going to be a win. That royalty rate thing, that's their first ask. They've actually got a second ask, okay? They also want to guarantee royalty for session musicians, because sort of going back to that. Currently, session musicians get no royalties whatsoever. So somebody could be playing on a massive track, like an Adele track or something like that, and they would get paid 130 quid for that session, and that track could be making millions, potentially even billions.
Well.
So obviously depending on the track itself, although I did hear that Taylor Swift paid her crew on her last tour. She gave them a bonus of, I think it was around about 300 grand each. Yeah.
How much did he make? How much? Sorry,
she made $1 billion
how much did
from
she?
that. How much did they then make? She made over $1 billion on that tour, and as a bonus for everyone who worked on that tour, she gave them 300 grand each.
Well, kudos for that.
Yeah, so fair play to her, I think.
Yeah.
Some people were actually moaning. I don't like that.
Well, you can't please everyone, can you?
No. And exactly why she should be doing all this sort of stuff. Why is she giving them all this sort of bonus and all the rest of it? It's like, well, probably because they've done a good job.
If I was running an operation, right, and I was the artist, then everybody, I'd be like, and I made enough, I'd sit down with the bookies and I'd look at it and go, that's good. So how much do we pay these people based on blah, blah, blah? I was like, yeah, okay, they did a good job. You didn't have no faults. There you go. There's a little bonus for you.
Yeah. And I think that probably represents, I think it was like a few million quid or something, a few $1 million out of the
I still
billion.
don't like her.
Do you know what? I'm sure she's a very lovely lady. I don't like her music, but I'm sure as a person, I'm sure she's very lovely. And I'm going to be humanistic on this, shall we say?
I'm sure we're all lovely, Pete. All of us, me and you included.
Yeah. Well, I'm all right, I suppose. I can be a bit of a dick at times.
We'll ask your wife.
That's right. Yeah, get a real.
Leave a comment. Leave a comment. We want to know.
Yeah, she'll be like, "You two are a bunch of tossers."
It's her, isn't it?
It's her all along. Yeah, it's the wife on a dummy account.
Brilliant.
So the MU, the Musicians Union, went on to say that arts funding would require investment by the government. This is why I also think that the government's not going to give out money for the arts. But
government isn't skint. I've seen your notes there. We know the government is skint, and the chances of more money, they're not skint. They're not.
Well, they are and they aren't. They're skint when they want to be. With this, the streaming, it would be put onto the companies. So it won't cost the government anything to go, okay, let's legislate so that artists get a fairer percentage from streaming.
Palming off it to somebody else.
Well, I think sometimes it does. If you've got a private company involved, then maybe the only way that you can do that is through regulation and through legislation. So overall, okay, what I think is the quantity game for musicians is dead. If you're a human person and you are writing songs and releasing music, going down the quantity game of, oh, I'm going to release a song every 2 minutes to try and bump up my royalty revenue, that's not going to work anymore, because AI has killed that just as a thing, because you can't, I mean, we talked about this in one of our episodes. We talked about the AI. I think it's episode 2 or 3. And there was a company that did AI music, and it was pushing out to over 2,000 songs a year. So if you can do that, if you can keep up that quantity, go for it. I can't see it. A human being can't do that.
Well, we got to work, haven't we? For the man.
We've got to, Even if you spend 8 hours a day doing that, I think we worked it out. It was like 300 songs a week or something ridiculous. It was hundreds of songs in a very short period of time.
Well, it stops being a creative element then, doesn't it? And it starts becoming a competition.
Yeah, well, it becomes commoditized art at the end of the day.
Fuck, it's just go with your heart, and what feels right when you're writing music. Go with the flow. That's how we write. So I write. That's how me and Dean writes. We go with what the gut and the heart tells you. It feels right, and you write a song, and it takes as long as it takes. And in the end, it proves to be a lot better in the long run. But people are impatient. Most people are impatient. And they can't wait, and they want it now, and this is the culture that we're in. And I think we need to just go like what I did just before Christmas time with the music, like, because Dean's pretty fresh with us, and he's also a little bit younger. He's just like 100 miles an hour, and it's like, hey, that's cool, but like, it's been a real tough year for the band anyway. And I was just like, hang on, put the brakes on.
Pump the brakes a bit. From that perspective, the quantity game is dead. It's done. Forget it. If you're thinking I'm going to be producing loads of music over the next year because you want a big royalty payout, you're going to be sorely mistaken, because you're going to be pushed out by AI. So quality is going to be crucial, I think, going forward, certainly in the next year. If you get that down now, then it's going to put you in good stead going beyond this year. This
quality, boys and girls.
Quality. So artist development and things like that, and having people involved, like producers, okay? Not to blow my own trumpet, involved, but also decent management and things like that can not obviously take over creative control, but can help guide you for artist development in that way. Even right down to A&R and things like that, if you want to go down the road of record companies. And ultimately just releasing fewer songs, taking your time to craft your songs, which was, back in the day, it would take years for artists to write albums. Tool was a great example of that. They had a 10-year gap. I think the 2006, and then the next release came out in 2016. Yeah, take your time, I think, and that will push you much above the noise that AI is going to be pushing out. But also, I think social media is going to change over the next year. I think repurposing videos is going to be problematic now. I think the platforms, because everything is about being entertaining and engaging, and I think if you're just repurposing stuff, it's not going to carry weight anymore. I think what you're going to have to do is think more along the lines of, I'm going to get really good on this one platform and don't worry about anything else. Or maybe one or two, go deep into those and how to work that algorithm and the rest of it. And don't try to repurpose anymore. You make a video specific for Reels, a video specific for TikTok or Shorts or whatever. The algorithms are they're too smart to kind of go, oh, okay, well, that's the same as that. And a lot of the time, you're linking it either through like something like your link tree, or you're linking it directly some of the times, from Instagram to TikTok, for example. which they know that you're repurposing stuff. They're not stupid at the end of the day, so
No,
they're going to downgrade your stuff from that, and I think that's going to become more prominent going forward. So, and I think the same, like we were talking about streaming. I think the same for streaming. I think what you need to do is pick a platform and market to that platform. And a lot of that can be quite genre specific. Like I was saying before, if you're a pop artist, then Spotify should probably be your home. But if you are more in the metal world, then something like SoundCloud or Bandcamp would be much more of a poignant thing to point people towards. I'm not saying don't have a presence, but be a bit more selective over what instead of going, I'm going to put an album out and it goes everywhere. So I'm going to put this song, these songs on this platform, and I'm going to put an album out over here. And I'm going to point people to, it's your choice whether you point people directly to the singles or whether you point people more to the album and that sort of thing. I think if you're savvy enough, you can start, if you want to put some money behind advertising, then you can start, you say, I'm going to have a campaign that directs this demographic of people to Spotify, and I'm going to have this campaign that sets these demographics of people to Bandcamp or SoundCloud or whatever, and I'm going to run those campaigns simultaneously and see what happens with it and that sort of thing. But you can only really do that if you are paying, because you're going to have to obviously select those demographics, and you can't do that from organic posts. So money then becomes a factor in that. And I think, to be honest, that's it. That's my prediction for 2025.
Not bad, Pete. Not bad.
Hopefully that'll be a bit of an insight, and people can start thinking, certainly in the new year, because like I say, this isn't probably not going to go out till Christmas Eve. But at least start thinking about it over Christmas on how they're going to sort of approach the next year. I'm doing a thing at the moment with Greenwave Productions where we're planning out artists for free, completely planning out their next year on how they're going to do things from production to release. So if any of our lovely listeners want that, send me a message. But that's something that we're doing I'm doing at the moment. But obviously at some point I can't plan out a year once we're 3 months into it. It seems a bit silly. So, and play any predictions that our lovely listeners or viewers have, feel free to put them in the comments. I'd love to know if you've got any insights that I might not have. I'd like to say just a Merry Christmas to everyone, and thank you for anyone that's listening, has listened to us over the last few months. I think it's been a good 6 months we've been doing this now.
Yeah, it's been fun, man. I love it.
And it's been such a good time. Really enjoyed our conversations and our insights and even our comments that we get. But I want to just thank you in particular for doing this with me. But I would just want to say Merry Christmas to you and your family, and I hope you have a very, very Merry Christmas. And to our listeners or listener, and my wife, have a Merry Christmas, wife. I'll see you at Christmas. But no, all of our listeners and any support that we get is greatly appreciated, and I hope that everyone has a Merry Christmas and a fantastic New Year. Bad Life Podcast!